Hi, good morning. Jorge Macias. You guys might know me as a ducking agent.
I'm Yvonne Folden. I'm a mortgage broker with EMortgage Capital.
That's awesome. So we're here with Yvonne, like she mentioned, and she mentioned she's a mortgage broker. So can you explain a little bit more about what mortgage brokers are?
So, mortgage brokers, I just like to say that they're middleman, where you're going to deal with a lender that is working in an actual company that is a loan originator at those lending companies or those banks. They are actually working specifically for that lender. So, they have specific guidelines that they're going to have to follow. They have certain things that their bank or their lender is going to require them to follow, as opposed to what I do. I have access with eMortgage Capital up to about 126 different lenders, where if get into a situation where a borrower is unable to follow the guidelines based off of one lender, I'm able to go and work with another lender that can help because they have maybe a little bit more lenient guidelines, or they have situations where they're just willing to work with a client.
That's amazing. So you said you have access to over 2,600 lenders?
Oh, 126.
126?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
apologize.
No, you're good.
Okay, so that being said, can you kind of take us through the buying process?
So for me, what I do is once I meet a client, depending on their phase in home buying or where their plans are, I always kind of take their application. That's always important because I think that once we're talking about it, it's great to go and they're able to go. Once we talk about it, then we're at that process. Okay, we're moving forward. We get the application, then I'm able to review their pay stubs. I'm able to review their credit report, and then get all the information to see what is going to be a best fit for them. For me, I always go and ask them what their goals are. You know, buying a home. What are the reasons? And that helps me understand. You know, what's their drive to buy this home, and to me, it's also in a way to encourage me to keep online with their goals whenever I'm working with them. So once I do their credit, we kind of see where they're at. I always generally do a soft pull just to see where they're at, and then getting their liabilities, so that when we actually have a home that they're interested in, I can give them a pre-qualification, and then they can go and put the house on. They can go and put a bid in the home, get under contract, and then that's when we start sending everything to the lenders, the underwriters, and then they make the decision, and we just go through that process.
Okay, so you mentioned that they undergo an application, but what kind of documents do they have to provide to you?
So the documents, I always start off with their pay stubs, 2 months of their pay stubs, 2 months of their bank statements, and that's just to kind of see where their finances are. I always, depending on whether their salary, their hourly, they own their own business, then what I would do is they ask them for 2 years of their W-2s, 2 years of their tax returns, and then also, obviously, we would always ask them for proof of identification, social security card, driver's license, and then also maybe birth certificate. But we don't necessarily ask for all those three documents, but we do ask for proof of who you are, as you're claiming who you are.
Okay, no, I got it. So as far as that goes, when a consumer turns in their documents, do you analyze that to see what type of programs they fit into? And can you kind of elaborate as to what kind of programs are typically used?
So here specifically in El Paso and in Texas, you're going to deal with your typical VA buyers, your conventional buyers, and your FHA buyers. Now, the thing about the programs that we offer, once we look at what their finances are, then what we can do is evaluate whether they may be a candidate for bank statement loans, non-QM, where there's no FICO score that we need to use. We look at we do the analysis, we do all of our due diligence so that we know that by the time we send them to a lender that we're able to get them qualified.
Okay, and does everybody qualify for those programs? You mentioned VA, conventional, and FHA, or what are some of the qualifications for those programs?
So obviously VA are specifically for veterans that have served, that are currently serving, and their family members. When I say family members, their spouse, maybe they have someone that is taking care of their children because they've passed on, they were in combat. So they'll be required to there's some things that they have. Now, also take into consideration that with VA buyers, there is a timeline that based on your component that you're going to have in order to be able to use those entitlements. So for FHA buyers, what you're going to see is that they may need some type of assistance. You generally will deal with first-time home buyers. They'll have low down payments, low interest rates. They're able to get into those low interest rates, and they're able to get some assistance. Now, conventional buyers, they get this. They can get the same thing. They can get assistance, but what you will see is more conventional buyers have less restrictions. They're a less riskier loan. They have those buyers, or you're going to generally have more money to put down on down payments between 5 and 20%. And then they're going to also have good credit scores, where just a lot of the things that they're not going to have so much things that they need, or they're going to have not as many fees as someone who is a FHA buyer.
Okay, you mentioned first-time home buyers program. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What exactly that entails?
So with first-time home buyers, I like to group them into DPA, down payment assistance. And what it is that what we're able to do is the states, the cities, lenders are all getting creative in ways to help buyers get into homes. And this is helping with economic growth. And what they do is they're providing loans. Now, there are grants that we provide. The grants are not, they don't require repayment. Then you have the loans that you won't have to, you have to meet a certain criteria that the lender has set forth for you. And then it's almost a forgivable loan. And then you have those loans where we're doing a down payment assistance or first-time home buyer programs where you're going to have to pay principal and interest. It's like a typical second mortgage, a second lien loan. So between all of everyone who offers down payment assistance or first-time home buyer programs, you're going to have those three options: grants, you're going to have a repayable loan, and then a loan that once you meet that criteria, you won't have to pay the loan anymore.
So in some of the cases, the down payment assistance doesn't have to get repaid, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So as far as that, what are some other advantages for these down payment assistance programs?
So one thing that I think is great about down payment assistance is that it's not necessarily for just first-time home buyers. So I think that people get into that mindset that, oh, well, I can only get down payment assistance if I'm a first-time home buyer. Especially in almost every state, honestly, you're offering loans, down payment assistance to first responders, educators, people in the medical field, even volunteer personnel that work in schools. So somewhere that they've become very creative in helping people achieve that goal of owning a home, or even, I mean, it would have to be primary residence, but for the most part, they're doing their best to achieve that home ownership for clients.
That's awesome. It's great to know that there's all these programs available for people that need those programs. As far as that goes, one of the common questions I get asked is, why does it take 30 to 45 days to close on my home?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, when you're going through the process, the 45, 30 days can be very quick. People think that it's why is it taking so long when you're in the beginning of your starting point, and when you get to the finish line, you're like, there wasn't enough hours in the day. So when you're a cash buyer, cash buyers, they can close quickly. There's a lot of things that they can wait. There's things that they don't even necessarily have to do. But then when you're a lender, you're a borrower and you're borrowing money, there's some things that we have to do in order to make sure that you are a credit-worthy individual to get this loan. But you also have to take into consideration that you have title, you have escrow that has to do their due diligence. And you think about it, what's to say that if they don't use those 30 to 45 days, that they end up in a situation where someone shows up at your door and says, hey, this is my house. So we make sure that everyone has adequate amount of time to go and make sure that they can clear the home so that the people who are purchasing the home, it's actually their home. So it takes some time.
So it seems like there's like a lot of third parties involved, which kind of delays the whole process. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then a lot of the questions that I get includes what's included in my monthly payment.
So obviously, if you are a VA buyer, because it's all depending on specific loans that you're applying for. So if you're a VA buyer, then you're going to have your principal, your interest, your escrow, which is going to include your insurance and if you have property taxes that you have to pay for. If you're FHA or conventional and you're paying under that required down payment, that you will now have to have PMI or private mortgage insurance, then you'll have that included. So for your FHA and conventional buyers, you're going to see your principal, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, and then as well as your PMI. And in some cases, depending on where you buy, you have homeowners association fees.
Okay, so all of that gets included in the payment, but you mentioned PMI. A lot of people ask me, what exactly is PMI?
So it's mortgage insurance. It's, they have expectations, lenders have expectations that you're going to pay this amount of money to show your good faith that you want this home. And when you can't come up with that, what they say is, okay, well, if you're a conventional buyer, you'll need to come up with 5%. But if you pay 20% down, then obviously you are an individual who's really serious about paying your mortgage and getting this loan. So what they do is, if you're unable for FHA to pay less than 10%, not unable, but if you're able to pay 10%, or conventional loan pay 20%, then they don't require you to have mortgage insurance. But if you have maybe the 3% or the 3.5%, then what they do is you'll have some mortgage insurance. And it's just letting them know that, if you're in default on your loan, that there's money stored away to get at least recoup some of the funds that they've lost.
Okay, so it kind of seems like the private mortgage insurance is more for the lending side of things.
Yes.
So it kind of protects them.
Yeah, it protects them, and at the same time, it protects the borrower, because then it's less money that they have to worry about coming up with in the event that they default on their loan, which is never something that we hope would happen.
Okay. Another question I get asked is, when is my first payment due? Say I sign today, when would I pay?
So what's today's date? I can't remember what today is.
Today's the 2nd.
Today's the 2nd. So
Yes.
what I tell people is that in the grand scheme of things, 30 to 45 days, but always on the 1st.
Okay.
So let's say if you were to close today, then you would have payments, or you'll have to pay for the next remaining 28 days, right? If April has 30 days, right? So what you're going to look at that is you're going to have that, where if you close at the middle of the month, let's say you pay April 15th, then you won't have to pay until the 1st of June. So what we do is always consider that your mortgage is covering the previous month, not necessarily you're not paying forward, you're paying for that previous month. So that's why, once everything happens and all the payments and everyone gets funded, that's why it takes. Textbook is 30 days. I say between 30 and 45 days.
Okay. And what can cause a payment to fluctuate?
So always remember that your principal and interest if it's a fixed mortgage, it won't change. Now, there's a thing called an amortization schedule, and that you'll see is that in the beginning, most of your mortgage is going to be going towards your interest and less towards your principal. And then roughly around halfway throughout the life of your loan, you'll see a transition where more money is going towards the principal and less is going towards the interest, because they want to make sure they get the interest first before they get the actual principal, right? But the two things that always change, that can potentially change, and it's important that the homeowners pay attention to it, is your mortgage insurance. Your hazardous insurance and your property taxes. So with your hazardous insurance, carriers will change, and the premiums will change and fluctuate, and without giving any notification. You see it on social media all the time, where someone's like, I didn't know my insurance increased, and then now they're in this fixed budget, and now they have to kind of readjust. And then the other crazy thing that I've seen a lot on social media lately is they didn't know that they have tax exemptions. They have homestead exemptions. So based off of whether you're a senior citizen, you're a veteran with disability up to about 100%, there's additional exemptions that you're going to be eligible for. So one thing I always tell my borrowers, is that I always go and say, hey, here's the information that you need to go do your homestead exemption. And I stay on top of that to make sure that, that's just another way we can help make sure that we don't end up paying that they have more fixed without having to worry about it fluctuating on their property taxes.
Okay, so it seems like it's mortgage insurance, sorry, I apologize. It's homeowners insurance, taxes, and apparently HOA as well sometimes that can cause it to fluctuate.
Yeah.
And those are probably like their shortages that should be worried about.
Yes, definitely, especially when it's a fixed income. We want to make sure that whenever we're applying, we're getting someone a loan, we want to make sure that they're able to have room, that wiggle space. But, just we can get you a loan and then things change. And that's why it's really important that you stay on top of it as the homeowner.
Okay. And okay, so what are some big do's and don'ts while you're under contract? We get this a lot.
Oh, man. So let's start with the don'ts. I would never, ever, ever tell you to do something that's going to jeopardize your loan. That's including applying for new credit, taking loans out. A lot of the times we're in that process of purchasing a new home. So what do we want to do? We want to buy new appliances. We want to go buy we want to get new things for our house. And then you're doing everything on credit because you've invested all your funds into putting down payment and closing costs. And the issue is that they do that before they close, then they jeopardize losing that loan. And then one thing it always seems like it happens is someone needs to buy a car. So I always tell people, just wait until everything ceases to stop when you're looking to buy a home, anything financially. Continue to pay your bills. Those are things that I always recommend. And the biggest thing is monitoring still your credit, continuing to ask questions to the realtor, ask questions to your lender to make sure that when you sign on that dotted line at closing, that you feel completely content that you got the best service that you could have asked for.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great information you provided, Yvonne. If they needed to reach you, where can they reach you?
So I'm on social media. You can find me literally if you were to search for EMortgage Capital and the loan officers. I have a microsite there. But I'm here in El Paso, Texas. You can reach me at 915-408-7411.
Okay, and my name is Jorge Macias again, the ducking agent. You can reach me at 915-232-1651. Thank you, guys.